Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
How you doing?
Great, thank you.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Great.
We are a week out from the big plunge, and again, you brought your bear in, and your fundraising efforts, of course, looking good.
Yes, looking great. Thank you again for week before last when you brought that up. Somebody came down to the office just to put money in just for that because they heard them on the radio.
Oh, nice.
Oh, very cool.
Well, we need to then put the call out to a couple other potential jumpers.
Who do we want to
upcoming
jump?
season.
Yeah, there's some people I think about all the time. They're Chief Bo Bakken,
Ah, yes.
fire chief,
Oh.
and I call him Chief still. He was a former chief, police chief, but Mike Evans over at Dispatch.
Oh, yeah, Mike.
Mike was a DNR diver, and I tell you, those two, they would look like Olympic champions. If they hit the water together at the same time,
Yeah.
it would be like synchronized swimming, gold medalists
Oh.
coming out of there so quick. But
Mike and Bo been called out.
yeah, I know that I've actually I watched Mike Evans did a lot of diving, so he knows what that water's like. But Chief Bakken, I think he's been there before. I'm hoping to see him on Saturday.
That would be fun. It's from 11 to 2 out at the Alderbrook, and we'll be out there calling names on the raffles, making announcements throughout the morning and afternoon. Stan Yanis and the Windjammers will be there once again, and it's always a lot of fun, and it's a great cause, raising monies for Mason County Emergency Services. And this is not kind of the normal day-to-day operations of the sheriffs. These are the volunteer organizations, the volunteer outfits that there is no line items in the budgets and things like this. So dive for search and rescue, for the canines, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. This would be more for the search and rescue and those kind of things for both fire and law enforcement. And what it does for the most part is it helps replace equipment that gets worn or new equipment that's needed. I think I told you last time that we were here, we had that roller that goes over the edge of the steel bridge, so you can put ropes over that and it'll roll them without damaging them. You know, that was a piece of equipment that was really needed and has been used a lot, believe it or not, up there in the area of the steel bridge. So that equipment's really important, and especially to all these folks that are the volunteers and search and rescues and folks that come out.
What else has been going on? I saw you out in the news here last week talking about some of the impacts to the budget that it was, and we've gone through and approved. The county commissioners have approved the budget, so we're moving forward as the numbers sit. But just looking at that, what were some of the things again that you wanted to?
I think one of the things is there's been some, I don't know if it's miscommunication or lack of understanding. Some people thought, well, the sheriff's office didn't lose anything. And if you look down the list there of all the things, when you lose $1.5 million in a year, and actually more of a 6-month period, there's going to be losses. And so we've had a number of people that there were some layoffs, and as well as there were unfilled positions. And to be able to say, well, they didn't really lose anything is incorrect, because we had anticipated in that budget, I think, long before anybody else had. And if we had went out and hired in all those positions, which some people criticize us for, we didn't hire them, they just laid them off. So we were very cautious on that, watching the budget come in. And so there are a number of positions on there that you will see that are unfilled. One of them was very challenging for us, was our animal control officer position. And we moved that person to another area in the office so they maintain some employment, but that area has been. This last week, we've had a number of people come in and talking about the animal control services, and the interesting part of it is the number of people are concerned about the county not having an animal control facility. And they were concerned about that, and quite honestly, a long time ago, a number of years ago, when Public Works was being built, there was a place up there designated to be to put equipment and to put evidence and to have an animal control area. And it just never materialized, and it's really tough anyway, even if you have an animal control person where
So
you don't have a facility.
the animals? And so you get a call, there's some dog and it's super barking, or some dog, heaven forbid, bites somebody or something like that. What happens?
For the animals at the time that we were, I remember the ones that we're responding to are now criminal issues.
Right.
But just wandering animals or something along that line, usually our animal control officer at the time would find places for them, just knowing people in the community or other shelters and things like that, and the animal shelters. Injured animals, I would tell you quite honestly, Shelton Veterinary Clinic has been wonderful about helping out with those kind of things, but it's quite expensive to do that. And then some animals, if we have to quarantine them or hang on to them, we had been paying space at the city's animal facility to put a dog in there. But it's very small down there. They don't have hardly enough room for themselves. It's kind of like the jail. It's not quite big enough, between the city and the county, it's not big enough. So we would have area down there, but it's very challenging because they've had, all these years. I mean, since the beginning of time, when I was a kid, there's no animal shelter,
right?
County animal shelter.
It's got to be tough. You don't want to. That's great that there are people that would maybe take an animal if needed to watch for a little while something's figured out. But
Right.
you don't know the background on some of these animals.
I would tell
That's
you,
scary. It could be scary.
I think it'd be interesting. I mean, if you were around during the day or over the year with us with animal control, that, like I said, we're going to do the criminal stuff. We're trying to put that out there so people don't think that's not going to happen. But the average stuff that you might not see out there is not. Officer Brewer, when she was handling it, has so many connections in the community. But even though we were specifically for animal control was for our dogs, there would be time that people would call and they have ducks or anything else out there that people would call and technically really not ours to deal with. But she generally would know somebody that would help out in those areas, and that's going to be a huge loss for us. We will still be doing what is mandated by law for the sheriff's office to do, but the other additional things that we just don't have the person to do that anymore.
What about big animals like horses?
Sometimes there's places, you're asking me questions for Officer Brewer that we don't have anymore. there are other places, there's other animal rescue programs, and every once in a while if you have to move animals, I'm aware that during that, remember a few years ago we had that fire out there, and there were people on their private property that were taking in animals just so they'd have a safe place. And
That's the DART team, Disaster Animal Rescue Training or something like that?
To move animals out. And the wonderful thing about that is even though people might be involved specifically with horses, that's people are animal lovers, and they figure out a way to find somebody who knows somebody who knows an organization that will help, and we've been very fortunate like that.
Well, it may not have been as as big, I guess is the word I was trying to find, as years past, like when the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was yesterday, and did you
watch?
Hear about did you watch? And did you hear about any calls afterwards or anything that happens with people in the county? You got more, 1 in 10 people not going to come to work today because they're not feeling well.
There was a commercial actually that said, "Call in now."
Yeah, call in now.
You're not going in.
You're not going in.
I guess the good sign is, unless I get a phone call at home from one of the chiefs or one of the supervisors, that's a really good thing. And I didn't get any phone calls at home.
That's good.
But I will tell you that in the years that I have worked in patrol, knocking on 30 years, the days that I really, really didn't like working were the time after the Super Bowl. Wow. And the Labor Day weekend, the last weekend before school goes back into session, because some schools go in for a few days before, then you have Labor Day weekend and you go back. And the night of Labor Day, I never liked that either, because most people are coming home from Eastern Washington from camping, and it's been hot and it's annoying, and everybody gets home, and that night everybody's trying to get ready for school, and that's a rough night. I never liked working that night, and I didn't ever like working immediately after the Super Bowl. There's all kinds of issues that you can think of that
I've read there's spikes.
Well, they were
in
turning over cars and
in Philly.
Well, in Philly,
what is
crazy.
that mentality of they won?
They do research. You do research on that. You ever go to classes? They talk about that mob mentality after a sport.
Oh yeah, but I'm no expert on that. It's just like on the Super Bowl, people tell you it goes up and down. I don't know what our call volume is. It's gone up and down, but I just never really liked that. And I'll tell you another morning that was challenging. I guess maybe it's just because the time when I was working, it was Christmas morning, believe it or not.
Huh,
really?
I've had serious calls on Christmas morning.
Didn't get what they wanted.
People sad that they're not with family, or just
I think
lot of pressure?
I'm really glad to see most of this passing us by now. I think when you get into November, December, and January, through the holidays, like I said before, most of us are pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
There are those that aren't, and having those holidays, to some you're seeing really neat stuff on TV and people giving away new cars to family members. And I don't know how many people really get to do that, but for other people it's not very pleasant. And so I'm always glad to see these months get out of the way. I think they're the roughest. I know they're the roughest for law enforcement.
tough month up here,
Yeah.
depression-wise too, with the
Yeah.
weather.
Law
and things
enforcement
like that.
months, they're tough months for law enforcement across the board, and the holidays. It's nice to get out. I'm waiting for the springtime, and the sunshine is what I'm
Me
waiting
too.
And keep waiting.
I'm
Actually,
waiting.
Saturday's not going to be too bad for our jump. It's going to be
Sunny
about
and
50.
51.
That'd be
Sunny and
nice.
50.
I heard they warm up the water a little warmer, better this year and everything.
Figure out how to warm up the water for us, all sorts of good things. Very nice. Sheriff Salisbury, anything else before we let you out of here?
One thing.
Yes.
We talked a while back about something, and last night I had to come down through town at late evening. We just remind people again that it is so difficult to see people walking down here in the evening hours. I know that there's lights, but there's shadows, and the number of people that I see walking in very dark clothing and also sometimes not walking in the crosswalks. But it's really challenging at night too. And drivers, be careful. But also, if you're out there, be careful where you're walking. It's just this dark time of the year. It's real challenging to see people.